Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. Certainly glad to have you with us today. Dan, very good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, Dan Navalis and I are your co-hosts for the episode today. Really like what we're going to dig into today. Some good value stuff, Dan, that is a part of something that's probably one of our primary themes.
Yeah.
Kind of one of our majors, but this is going to get really specific. Some real value add for our listeners today, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think set the stage a little bit. You know, we you've seen the episode title if you're listening to this probably. So we're talking about competitive advantage.
Yeah.
But it's a theme we come back to probably almost every episode of the show, right? Like the whole point of bank marketing is to differentiate yourself from competition, because the industry is one that's pretty commoditized, and you're selling money, you're selling the same stuff as every other bank. So really the ultimate goal of marketing and branding is to create competitive advantage. If you can't do it through product details, you've got to do it through brand. So I'm excited to kind of go through a framework here that you've developed, Chris, and kind of show it off and hopefully spur people to action.
Yeah. The good news and the bad news at the same time is that in today's environment, and particularly with younger audiences, Dan, that so many of our community bank clients are trying to target and acquire with millennials and Gen Zs and, all of these, is that either the real or perceived ability to change banks and or I might have my deposit accounts at one bank, but I go somewhere else for a loan because what I perceived was a more competitive mortgage opportunity, or do something different with my small business, or whatever the case may be. So that's really something that we wanted to encircle and get a lot more specific about today, Dan, is that differentiation, and both why should you come to me instead of the community bank or credit union down the street, number one, or why should you come to me instead of this fintech or the national or large regional bank. So we talk about that in this industry all the time, but what I like about what we're going to do today is we're going to deliver some really specific, key strategies as to what that is and really a defined process. So, this kind of sounds funny with a podcast or if you're watching it on YouTube, but this would be one I would suggest you grab your notepad and kind of take your own notes as the applicability for whatever size your financial institution is. And I think it's going to be really applicable today, Dan.
Or if I might say, subscribe to the companion newsletter to the podcast on bankmarketingminute.com.
Yep.
You find it on the Bank Marketing Show website too, because we'll send out an email the day after this podcast is released, but you'll be able to go back and look at it too if you're listening to this later. But we share sort of those notes out on there too.
Yep. And at the end of the episode today, we're going to talk a little bit more about an opportunity to engage with you or me, peel the onion back a little bit more for your own institution, for your own company, if you like, as well. So very cool. Well, Dan, as we were setting this up, it became very obvious to us what step one needs to be in determining and utilizing competitive advantage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you don't know what your competitive advantage is, then you can't use it. So the first step is identifying it.
Yeah. And that's really self-analysis. It's I guess in the counseling world terms, it's self-awareness. you know. And in short, this is a really honest look in the mirror, okay? And it's looking at not how do you identify yourself, right, Dan? But how does your target audience identify you? I think that's, really the key in it. And you and I even talked about a couple of specific ways to do that. And the first one is really obvious: is Google yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
Google your institution.
Put yourself in your customers, your prospective customers' shoes, and try to get a sense of how they see you, right? It's really hard. You're in the bank every day. You're living it every day. It's really hard to see that outside perspective, right? But if you Google your bank name, if you think of terms, banks near me, check best checking accounts, that, those types of things that customers might search, the results that you see are what the customer sees. So look how you appear on that. Do your listings look good? Do your is the page that it's driving to on your website, that's how you're perceived.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, look at your competitors. Look at, if you're showing up fourth or fifth in the Google rankings, look at who's second and third. Look at who's first. Look at the ads that show up. Look at all the stuff around it, because those are your kind of true competitors. You might think your competitors is like, oh, this is the bank across the street, but most people are Googling stuff and opening, you're wanting to get young people opening accounts online. Your competitor might be, a Wikipedia page, right? It might be something totally non-intuitive that shows up with you in the rankings.
Yeah. I mean, Google is 84% of the search market. So that's the best resource to go and look at yourself also. And, I agree with you that another great way to do that is because 67 to 69% of your traffic is coming on mobile. So maybe Google yourself on your phone and do it with the question in mind. Don't worry at this point, because we talk a lot otherwise about brand. So you may or may not like how you look as you show up. But this is with the question of why would someone in my target audience, whether that is a business or a consumer, why would someone choose me over my competitor based on what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
That's and be honest about it. I mean, kind of turn your hat around backwards here and or get someone to look at that hard with you. And why would someone choose me over my competitor? It's a great way to do it. So, and I think another great one for self-analysis is then ask the same question, but walk into your lobby or walk into your marketing, director's office or whatever the case may be, and pick up your collateral. Look at your ads. So whether that's a local, whether that's a billboard or what digital ads are we serving, or and look at your marketing messaging. And Dan, our listeners hear this a lot, but if your marketing messaging is established in 1916, well, okay, is that a competitive advantage? Now, it's a statement of authority. I'll give you that much, but that's the only credit I'm going to give you if that's your marketing message is since 1916. I mean, come on, is that a motivator to bring members of your target audience over to your bank?
Yeah,
as consumers and businesses, absolutely not.
It's a trust builder, but it's the third or fourth section down on the page or in the brochure, not the top one.
Yeah.
Right. It's, you can say, hey, look, we know what we're doing. We've been around 100 years, but so have like 30 other banks within a 20-minute drive of you. So, you should say it somewhere, but it's not, if you're leading with it, it's not a competitive advantage. And that, I think that brings us to the second, the second point here, closely related, but the step two is going to look at your competition's products and services, right? Like you're doing the self-analysis. We can kind of bounce back and forth here, but on 1 and 2. But while you're doing this self-analysis, look at your competitors, because I bet your competitors also say since 1932 and since 1874.
Yeah,
and all these dates are so old that another 30 years doesn't matter, right? So you'll start to get some perspective on your own materials by starting to look at your competitors as well. And by that, I mean both the competitors like across the street that you think of, but also the digital ones that I mentioned. Because if you're searching mortgage, it could be a mortgage broker, non-bank lender type of company.
Yep. Dan, I've got a great case study with this one, and it happens to be a bank client that your agency and mine are co-working with, in common. And the specific marketing messaging around their mortgages hasn't been in the past, but is about to be some really specific reasons for in that home state. And the way that they have mortgages framed and those types of things. I mean, I've read these 3 or 4 key points of their competitive advantages in the mortgage sector, and I'm sitting there thinking, I kind of wish I lived in that state because I would I would move my mortgage to these people, or if I was buying a new home or a first time home buyer. I mean, it's almost a no brainer.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So under your number 2, Dan, as we're looking at our competitors' products and services, maybe what you have out there in your marketing messaging is addressing your pain points of your target audience. And if so, that's what you should be doing. And if theirs says since 1916, then you got a big leg up on your competitive advantage. And if it's not, then we need to look at flip-flopping that for you. What is it that you can do in your messaging and in your brand and all these other kind of things to convey the competitive advantage of why? Yeah. And you and I are using it as a mortgage example, but man, I'm telling you, you and I know the bank client that we're talking about, and I mean, I read those things and I'm like, wow, man, if I was buying a home anywhere in this area, I mean, this is a no-brainer for these 3 or 4 key reasons, if you know what they're talking about. And that's great stuff.
No, and I think the way we got to that, right? The way we got to that level is, right, if you sit back and think about like, well, what makes you different, right? Which is the core of competitive advantage. What makes you different? And you ask a bunch of bank CEOs this question, and they say, "Oh, well, we bring more value.
We're local.
We local decision making.
Yeah,
and so suddenly when you have that perspective of asking or researching your competitors enough, you'll start to see those themes and these same phrases appear. And so when you see your competitors, multiple competitors saying the same thing, local decision making, it's our service, those might all be true, but they're not differentiators anymore. They might be a different, you can start to differentiate from you guys from, a Bank of America or Chase, or not to single those guys out, but they're not saying local decision making, but then the 3 other community banks in your area are. And then, the second point on that is customers don't know what it means.
Yeah.
And, it's like the since 1916 thing. It's it's so old that it doesn't remember. We have another mutual client we work with that the bank was opened in the 90s, right? And it's that still seems pretty old, right?
Yeah.
It's old enough, right? It's old enough that it, if you've been around 30, 40 years, you know what you're doing. But I think here it's getting to that next level down, right? So if I'm doing a workshop, if I'm, chatting with a bank about competitive advantage, I'm saying, okay, great. Tell me why you're different. And I'll get more value, better service, local decision making. Okay, say why. Great. Why? Yeah. I'll do the thing. You ask why 4 or 5 times till you get to the core of it. And so, great. It might go from local decision making to, we can make decisions faster. Great. Why do I care? Why do I care about faster decision making? Why does the customer care about it? Oh, well, they've got a bid out on a house and they need a answer back quickly. Great. Well, that matters, right? But why does that matter? Okay, well, getting a decision back quickly means, they have a better chance of their home being accepted and, getting into their dream home. And, you can kind of keep going down that path and you'll feel it. You'll feel when you've got that answer. And, and I think the more specific you can answer the why the more exciting it's going to make that target market. And so, for a community bank, there's a very specific why that you can get to, why you, and you can say we know the community, but if you can really show it. And for this joint client that you mentioned, Chris, some of those reasons are, well, we specifically know the tax laws in our state. We know how property taxes are reassessed, and we know that, borrowers have run into problems before. And,
and we have a solution for that.
And we'll work with you on it. And we actually do our, escrow differently because of it. We do our, do other things differently because of it. And, so in that path, you're part educating, right? A first-time homebuyer doesn't even really understand what escrow is yet. Even if they can define it, they haven't lived through a doubling or an escrow catch-up, window. And you can educate them on that. Whereas the really big kind of national brokers and big bank competitors are not doing that. They're just trying to kind of get you through the system, get a signature, and sell you off to another servicer. And so if you can tell that story of how you don't do that stuff, how you really know the local market, that's a competitive advantage that even the big national competitors can't touch.
And another piece that I don't want us to fail to get our listeners to think about as you're looking at your competitors and yourself, this step one and this step two, also is about niching and the verticals that you specialize in, or should. So if the answer to that is the competitive advantage, either for you or for your competitor, is, we do more large equipment loans than anybody else for ag customers. Okay, I mean I'm thinking about one of our bank clients, that's a truth for. And so if I'm a farmer and, going to need loans for more, new equipment and those types of things, and I see that, with a local bank of mine or a bank in my area, man, that's who I'm going to gravitate to, because they know what they're doing. They understand the nuances of maybe different ways to style the financing for this heavy equipment. And, man, I need somebody that knows what they're talking about, because that's my business. That's
versus an ad or a web page that just says ag loans.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ag loans for any purpose, right? Which is what 99 out of 100 banks will do left on their own, is ag loans we want everybody, bring everybody in. And yeah, that's true. But if your specialty is, heavy equipment, big tractor combine loans, say it.
Yep.
Maybe also have a web page or something that's and also we do loans for other services, but get specific. Don't be afraid to get specific.
There you go.
And, when it makes sense for how you actually do things.
Yeah. So Dan, as we were outlining this for today, I loved where we went with these next couple of points around competitive advantage, is because, so we've looked at ourselves, we've looked at our competitors, and now is the time to ask. So who do we ask? Well, ask your loyal customers. Go to some of your best customers, the ones that you know, that maybe you've been in the trenches with over the years, or whatever the case may be. And we want to encourage you, actually interview them. Maybe that's a casual, take them to lunch, or say, hey, can I have a phone chat with you? Say, hey, I know this sounds like an interesting question to you, but why do you use us? What is it that either brought you to us, or why do you continue to use us? And that can be, by the way, a really cool conversation with a current customer. And to say, because, hey, Dan, you've been a customer for 17 years. You know how much we value you, all that other kind of stuff. So as we're looking at our own stuff here, I wanted to ask you what your perspective is, and then listen. So ask your loyal customers, some of your best customers, and actually interview them, engage with them around this.
Yeah. Yeah. We just did a video shoot, and part of that video shoot was bringing in current customers of the bank and to get testimonials. But, they had we always see some really insightful comments. And what you think are your differentiator is not what your customer thinks.
Yep.
And often as you talk to them, maybe it's a customer you see every day, but you probably don't talk to them, ask them questions about, why do you think we're different? Why do you keep coming back here?
Yeah.
And you can uncover some really insightful stuff.
Or it's a customer that you wish you talked to more often because they're a really good customer, and you're like, well, this gives you a great reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think too, it's a, you can also, I think, this step kind of 3A, right? It's like talk to them and understand, interview a few of them, bring a bunch in for lunch and have a, kind of informal focus group, and you'll hear these themes come out. And I think 3B is like, you can actually test messaging, test what your differentiators are with them, and, kind of assimilate the information you get from them and then feed it back, even over email or whatever, and say, here's what we heard from these meetings that we had. Do you agree? And you'll get, you can kind of hone it that way really, really easily. And your best customers are, more than willing to do it. I when we've done these video shoots with testimonials, most banks are a little apprehensive. Like, I can't ask the customers to like take time out of their day and come in. But then when they do, they ask, and most of the customers are like super happy. They're kind of honored to be asked, and they come in and they're great and they're super happy to be there. And, so I think it's invaluable feedback when you kind of get out of your branch to talk to folks.
Yeah. Well, and I know another thing that you have in mind is that little quiz test that we'll talk about in a moment, because that was 3 was ask some of your current, best or loyal customers. And then 4 is, man, what a great reason to touch base with some potential customers. People that you kind of know, or they're kind of on your lead list, or that your loan officers have been trying to get in with, but, or whatever the case may be, is ask potential customers as well. And sometimes what they may like is what you were alluding to, is kind of this test process. Say, hey, look, we've got our marketers, okay? So our marketing partners are trying to work with us on some stuff, and they've come up with these 3 or 4 taglines, or kind of statements around our messaging, if you will. Maybe they're not taglines. And so do you mind if I just take a second and let me run these by you? And what do you think actually is us? Yeah. What speaks to us the most? What is it that, and again, so maybe you or your marketing director or us as an agency partner comes in and says, hey, run this messaging by some potential customers and kind of quiz them, see what they think. Yeah. And they may say, look, these two, if they're honest with you, you may wish this was you, but this is really not you. Yeah. But,
And I think the real test of this too is, don't tell the customers ahead of time that you're doing this, but call them 3 days later, right? Ask them their opinions. Call them 3 days later and ask what they remember. And, you're going to find, like, what are the themes that they remember if you're testing taglines or, web page headings or stuff like that. Like, call and see if they remember stuff in a few days. And if one tagline's like really memorable, that might tell you, it's a good one to use.
Yep. Or ask them a hard question like, hey, what is it that you see that we could improve that would better align with your banking needs for your business or your,
what frustrates you about the bank? Right?
Yeah. There you go.
That's ask hard questions and say, we're doing this. We can, it's tough to stir up bad stuff, but it gives you an opportunity to understand it and fix it before it becomes a, bad Google review.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of Warren Buffett's favorite techniques in selling is to actually tell them in a sales pitch or at the end of a sales pitch, what are the 3 things that could go wrong? So, hey, if you came over and you were a customer to us, here are the way that, basically what you're telling them, these are our competitive advantages. These are the way that we can resolve your pain points, or this is how we can take care of you. And that may be the local decisions, so we can make a decision faster for you. It may be this, these are the key things, and by the way, we realize that whatever, our online account opening, process is not quite what it needs to be. So we're working on that. And that's, and actually disclose some of the things that are maybe some of the issues, And what's amazing is sometimes potential customers will argue with you. Yeah, I know y'all don't do it, but that's not really a big deal. The reason I would do business with you is because of this that you do have in place. So it's really interesting. Warren Buffett obviously figured some stuff out, so that's a great tool.
Yeah.
In these conversations.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much non-intuitive stuff, like that you just can't possibly know what people are thinking. You can assume, but yeah.
So Dan, now that we've analyzed, gotten a lot of this information, talked to customers and potential customers, then the fifth step in the process is addressing your weaknesses. And here's the point of caution in this one, I think, is that does not mean trying to get good at everything or saying that you're good at everything. In fact, we might encourage that sometimes it's the opposite of that. So addressing your weaknesses, if it's like, well, whatever, we're not good at ag loans, and that's a 0.01% of our portfolio or whatever the case may be. Okay, well, so if that does that even need to be addressed? No,
right?
Because if what you're much better at are, fill in the blank, personal loans. Okay, well, let's go get much better at that and address any weaknesses we may have in that key revenue category for us, and don't try to be all things to all people.
Yeah, well, I mean, for so many banks, it's the hard part is just like, creating a new customer relationship. Like once they're in the door, you can do a lot of different things with them, right? But if your weakness is just the brand building on the front end, right? If you're great at growing your relationships once they're in the door, but your weakness is the front end, like you don't worry about, don't worry about the other downstream stuff. Like fix that top thing in the funnel.
Yeah.
And get more people in, and then you can clean up the rest of the stuff later. But if you're asking your customers and potential customers like why you're different, what the problems in working with you are, what the good things working with you are, like address the weaknesses and play to your strengths. Like fix the stuff that comes up, even if you think something else might be more important. I mean, a lot of banks will say like, well, we need an online account opening, but like, probably you should have that. But like that of it in and of itself isn't going to bring in tens of thousands of new customers. Just having online account opening, right? Like it may improve your conversion, but you still have to get them to the website. So, you may have a further upstream problem of just, well, nobody knows who we are. We don't have any ads running. We have, show up poorly in Google. It doesn't matter if you don't have online account opening because nobody's coming to the site.
Yeah. Or, if a weakness is around, well, we want to have better share of wallet, so it's improving relationships with our current customers, and get them to do more with us, which is typically a very key one with community banks. Then improving a weakness looks like, how are you communicating your other offers and options and other things that you can do for them? Did you know that we also, and how are you communicating that without shoving it down their throats?
Yeah.
And how are you making them aware that they don't need to go down the street or to a national bank or to a Rocket Mortgage or to a something like that, because you can do all of that for them. That could be shoring up a weakness. That's a communication issue. That could be adding infrequent but informative and valuable emails.
Yeah.
Monthly emails to your customers. It can look all kind of way. That's shoring up a weakness, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. So Dan, we've looked in the mirror and done self-analysis and looked at our own, what is our competitive advantage? And then we've looked at our competitors, particularly our direct competitors, okay, and analyze that. We've talked to our customers and our loyal customers. We've talked to potential ones, which has been a really great excuse to talk to some of them and engage them in some conversation. And now we're taking steps to address those weaknesses. So we've gone through these 5-step processes. So now what?
You're done.
Right?
No.
Good. Everybody can go home.
Yeah. I mean, now I think, I think we can, let's talk action, right? I think you've collected all this information, and if you're going through this process, at this point your mind is probably sort of spinning, right? But I think in general, then you've got to find a way to get the stuff you've discovered out there. So I think a few ways to keep it simple are better, right? That we're not talking about redoing your whole website and we're training your staff on different customer interactions. We're not talking big. It doesn't have to be big, huge things like that, but it can be, a message, right? It can be thinking of a new tagline or a new heading for the website that just sums up all the stuff you uncovered, right? What's your, not stating your competitive advantage directly, but what is the benefit to the customer of that competitive advantage?
Mm-hmm.
You do mortgages better, right? Because A, B, and C, and I'm being general after telling you all to be specific, right? But say you do mortgages better for a few specific reasons. How does that sum up into, a short message that grabs attention and then, open? You're not going to be able to link 3 or 4 words to explain how you do mortgages differently. But based on that, can you create 3 or 4 words that really grab attention and open up the door to explain how you do it better?
Yeah. Well, Dan, what you're saying is simple. You're saying keep it simple, but simple can still be concise.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be more general.
No, not even.
Can just be direct and simple.
I would say, even more specifically than concise, it can be specific, right, and meaningful, right? So instead of, right, it's like the moving from trusted local since 1916, to mortgages done for Smith County, right? Or
there you go.
I'm making that up, but we know Smith County, we can get it done. Making it really specific, based on that competitive advantage you found, is it. You can ask ChatGPT to come up with 20 snappy taglines, but they're not going to be specific to that competitive advantage. So what we're going for here is messaging that is specific to all those things that you just came up with, right? So it's like we talked a minute ago about the 5 whys. Keep asking why do you get specific. This is almost the opposite. Start from the specific competitive advantage stuff, but sort of go back up the chain a bit. And how do you talk about that really simply, really generally in a few words, right? Not trying to get the whole story across, but just, like I said, open up the door to have the bigger discussion, to have the longer discussion.
Yeah. And Dan, another great action step, once you've kind of gone through that 5-step process also, and kind of determine that simple message also, but is using success stories. So, for example, you talk to those customers, that gave you some great feedback. So, as you did that, those are great case studies. Those success stories as to what you did well for them.
Yeah.
Or those types of things, that's what came out. And if those are specific around your differentiators and your competitive advantage, then those are the stories that we want to tell.
Yeah.
So if that's
the customer, if your competitive advantage is, we know our local county's weird property tax laws, and a lot of people get bitten by, escrow changes, have a customer come on and tell their specific story and say hey, I didn't know about this. I can't imagine the problems I would have had if I'd gone with a different bank that didn't know the area. Just get that story out, and it's so much more meaningful coming from a customer than just the bank saying it. Yeah.
So those may be success quotes that you're adding to your collateral. It may be quick videos that you're adding to your website. Of your customer saying that or telling their quick, concise story, that somebody, and social media obviously is a great way to tell success stories. And it doesn't have to be something that's specific that even is a compliance consideration. It may just be, hey, I love this bank because, they help me grow my business from the ground up, and here I am a generation later and I've got my kids taking over the business. Well, wow, what a story, that kind of thing. So yeah, telling and finding ways to share those success stories, Dan, is a big one. And it's a part of educating your audience as to what you do. But that's very different than saying, we do mortgages. Well,
Right.
okay. Well, so does everybody else. So what? Why is it, like the examples you and I have talked about today, why is it that you're different? In a lineup, why is your potential customer going to choose you? Well, if you've educated them as to what it is that your differentiators are, and you're better than your competitors, then they're going to be educated in that, and they're probably going to take action on it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when you get specific, right, it lends itself to all kinds of blog posts and, conversations at events and, giving talks at Chamber of Commerce meetings instead of just going. Stuff like that, where you can say, look, here's how mortgages in Smith County are different. Here's how the property, laws are different. And here's the experience at, General National Bank. And here's the experience at our community bank. And be aware of this if you're going down the home buying path. Like, great, if you might be able to get a better rate at big national mortgage company, but you're not going to, you're suddenly that extra $30 a month you're saving isn't going to matter when, your total payment doubles because, we're catching up on escrow. Like it's telling those stories and sharing it in an educational way, that helps customers see that next level. You grab with the tagline or the heading of the site, they can kind of read those main points, and then you can draw them into deeper content. And keep asking for that, chance to give them a pre-approval and talk to them.
Even something like a digital ad campaign, Dan, can be a great way to educate your audience. Because if you're using a platform like that to educate your audience around something that they should be aware of to address a pain point in their life, then they're going to acclimate to you to help answer that pain point for themselves because they relate to it. And educating your audience around, even through those types of campaigns can be incredibly valuable, and they're going to know that you're the ones that, maybe not consciously, but at some level, they're going to realize that your XYZ bank is the one that let them know about that. So you're going to be the one, that means you're the mechanic that knows what they're doing, so you can fix my car. Yeah. And that takes out rate squabbling and everything else. It's like, hey, I need this pain point in my life addressed, whether it's, for a consumer loan or an account or whatever it is, because they're the pros that have educated me on that. So,
talk about building trust, like
there you go. Yeah.
Trust with specific information instead of saying trust because we've been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You're actually, providing value to them, helping them before they're even a customer. And, people will often kind of pay you back with their business when you kind of lead that way.
Yeah. Dan, I know one of the things that we wanted to do on the tail end of the episode today was an invitation, right? Is we want to invite folks to reach out to you or to me or to the both of us through the Bank Marketing Show website. And we are happy to have this conversation with you. How you can walk through this competitive analysis process and determine your competitive advantage and then do something about it, into the action steps. And your guys and my team, are glad to just have these conversations, kind of share some best practices about others that have done that. And we want to encourage you guys as our listeners to reach out to us.
Yeah. And I'll say, in a 20 or 30 minute conversation, right? I think we could get you really pretty far along on the competitive advantage discussion. Like we've done this enough. And I think, we'll take you, we can take you through the 5 whys. We can, we can live on the phone, Google competitors and walk through some of the stuff we're talking about in this episode and kind of give you a little kickstart down the path.
There you go. And
that's me using the competitive advantage tips to be a little bit more specific, right?
Yeah, there you go.
let's get on the phone and get some work done and actually get you going on some of the stuff we're talking about here.
Because undoubtedly along the way in that conversation, Dan, we're going to throw in, hey, did you think about that? You mentioned so and so or this thing you do, and yes, and help you guys down the road with that. So. Yeah. Dan, at the end of the day, that's kind of why you and I are doing this, man, is to help people, along these kind of processes with their companies and their own careers too. So we love having those conversations.
Yeah. So reach out at contact@bankmarketingshow.com or through the website, and we'll happy to have a chat.
Yep. Very good. Well, Dan, this is good stuff. I think we've given some great takeaways and ways to help our listeners today. So great conversation with it.
Yeah. Hopefully, everyone's finding some value in this, and even if you aren't up for a conversation, we'd love to hear from listeners. Reach out to us and let us know your feedback. Let us know other topics you might want to hear, your take on some of the things we're saying here.
Yep. And we continue to be pleased and amazed, with our download traffic and all of that. I want to encourage all of you guys, if you know somebody else that could benefit from the episode today, share it with them. Yeah. Or go on our website and find some of these other episodes that we've done in the past that are really juicy and share those. And it helps raise the tide, man.
Absolutely.
All right, Dan. Have a great one. Really enjoyed the conversation today.
Likewise.
Take care.
You too.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.